All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Beef Brunch news update for the week ending February the 3rd. I'm Jason Holmes. I've got Lee Faulk over in the northwest part of the state and Vince Desautel down in central Louisiana with us today. We've got a good bit to talk about, a good bit of happenings, all the way from weather to events that we've got to talk about today. So we're going to go ahead and get started with you, Vince, if you're ready. Get us caught up on what's been taking place down the central part of the state.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here this week. Yeah, it's been a wet event here lately. We had, I guess, a week ago Sunday, just depending on where you were, we had 3 to 5 inches of rain on that day, and then this past Wednesday, Thursday was supposed to be our big rain day here. Well, actually ended up being Wednesday. It got in excess of an inch in areas. On Thursday, we'd pass in front. It cleared things out on Friday and turned sharply cooler with clear weather. So we've seen some drying conditions over the last 3 or 4 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today is very mild. It's in the 70. We're going to reach 70, 72, and here in Opelousas and South Central Louisiana. So that's nice and easy on the cattle for sure. The problem we're running into is that December freeze, the week of Christmas to New Year's. It kind of decimated most of our winter forages as far as ryegrass, and if there was any wheat in the area, and clovers are sure slow to come. And we got people that bale hay for a living looking for hay right now to feed their own cattle. So I spent most of last week, even though we were at our district show in Southwest Louisiana, people looking for hay where we can grow grass. It may not be the best forage quality in the world because of the amount of rain we get in a year, but they got people hunting for hay from east to west and north to south. I can tell you, uh, and here we are, February the 6th, and um, a sharp 60 days before we see any kind of green up. So I know myself, I run about 90 head of mother cows, and I usually put up right at 300 rolls, big rolls, 5 by 6 rolls, and I'm down to 52 bales right now, and I don't know that I'm going to make it. But I got spring calvers coming, so I'm going to have to bite the bullet and fertilize what ryegrass we got left to try to get some green up going before. And I think that's the case with most people. A couple of crop dusters were flying around early this morning. I have a pretty good feeling that we're either fertilizing the wheat crop and or some ryegrass fields in the area. So it's certainly too wet to get out there with a spreader buggy and a tractor because you just add insult to injury of what's already taken place as far as wet ground and rutting up and what have you. So, um, Jason, I'm sure you'll cover the cattle market, but there's a lot of enthusiasm in the cattle market right now. And with that being said, there's a lot of people thinking about getting out of the cattle business with, what we've been faced with high cost of inputs, fuel and fertilizer, and just it's just tough on the old guys that are still in it. They fed up with ground conditions and just not margins of profit being so low. So there's still a lot of scuttlebutt of who's going to still be left in this thing. Once I watched some updates on Drover's Journal this morning or Drover's Magazine, Darrell Peel and some other economists out of Colorado, and they said that with the cattle numbers being at an all-time low coming up in 23, that we should see should see some historical highs as far as both in the kill cow market and also feeder cattle market. So I think it's going to be an advantageous time for people to rethink their game and readjust whether they stay in the grown cow market or buy replacement heifers or not, or sell the replacement heifers. There's a lot of question on what may be coming. So um, bulls have gone out for the fall calving season for the most part in this part of the state. Some people looking for bulls. A lot of bull sales coming up this spring and stocker cow sales. So we anticipate that's going to be questionable on how good that's going to be. I'm hearing of some astronomical prices on some of the higher ended cattle which the tiger stripe females in our part of the world is queen of the cow country, and it's you having to give a toe every now and then to buy one of those things. So it's going to be very questionable. But moving forward, if the calf market can sustain move forward and move upward. Those cattle are going to sell and be productive for a long time. So hopefully that all comes into intuition. But it's been wet. It's hot and cold. It's almost like we need a season change pretty quick here to get everybody thinking back in order as far as where we're going. But some field work wanting to take place. Some of our rice guys that work ground in the water are doing that right now, getting ready for the spring planting season, which will be here before we know it. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, there'll be some rice planted down here, and crawfish season is in full swing with a poor market, with a poorer than normal economy. But crawfish are coming in. For those folks in the northern reaches that are listening to this that may be interested in crawfish, you sure are invited to visit South Louisiana to get some crawfish. So they're looking for markets, and it's kind of strain on the market right now. So hopefully the economy gets better, the weather gets better, people get out and start doing spring-like activities. So that's about all I got at this time, Jason.
All right. Thank you, Vince. Lee, we'll kick it over to you for a report on Northwest Louisiana.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. Echoing what Vince said about last week, it was wet and extremely wet and pretty darn cold up our way. Folks, we narrowly avoided disaster last week in Northwest Louisiana. We were under a winter storm watch for 2 or 3 days, Jason, something like that. And we were just a couple of degrees away from disaster striking on an ice storm. I don't know if y'all have seen pictures out of what's happened in Texas, and just terrible what they got. Nothing like what we got a couple of years ago in February. I guess that would be 21, but pretty significant ice event over there. We were just 1 or 2 degrees too warm, and I was sure glad to have those 1 or 2 degrees. Had one day last week where there was a little icing in trees, but as far as I know, there was no icing on the ground. And actually, we come out of that event, several inches of rain, lost count of how many inches total we got. Just one of those deals where you just lose track because you're tired of emptying your gauge. Was really expecting the winter forages to look worse than what they actually do. Now, don't get me wrong, it hammered it pretty good, but it didn't. Sounds like we might be just a touch better than what Vince and those folks down Central and South fared as far as these winter forages. What I've looked at has got some good color as far as the ryegrass and the cereal rye, a little bit of wheat here and there. It looks fairly good as far as health. Now, it's not producing a ton of forage. It's not, and it's got it. I've seen some pastures that are grazed pretty darn close. Just got to make sure that we don't have some trumping issues or we don't get those pastures in too tough a condition. But the weather is definitely moderated in the last few days, and it's actually been fairly pleasant as far as temperatures. It's been good to see the sunshine and the 60-degree weather up this way. Seeing some pretty decent signs of some white clover, especially in the river valley over there, Red River Valley, and even in some hill pastures that's got some white clover populations. It's coming, folks. It's, just like this cattle market we've been saying, it's going to get better. We know for sure that that these winter forages are going to come on, and we're going to get some usage out of that. But I want to echo what Vince said, and I'm at the risk of sounding like a broken record, folks. I've been in extension not as long as these two gentlemen, but for well over a decade now, and of which that time of which includes 2011, which was by far the worst drought in my lifetime. I'm not going to say that the need for hay is greater than that year, but it's darn near approaching it, folks. My phone has rang nonstop over the weekend. Everybody, folks needing 100 bales, 200 bales, all the way down to, I got 2 cows, I need 1 bale of hay, I'm out. My guy that usually supplies the hay is out. Just the need is great across the spectrum from small producers all the way up to the large ones. So I'm going to echo what we said last time we visited on one of these news reports. If you have any hay for sale, please reach out to one of us. And I know that when I say that, folks think, well, I don't have 50 rows or 100 rows to sell. Folks, if you got 10 or 15 rows to sell, I guarantee you we could match you up with somebody that would greatly appreciate it. So reach out to us. I think y'all all have our contact information, how to get in touch with us. Even if you just call your local county agent and just report that you've got a few rows extra you'd be willing to sell, so on and so forth, it'd be greatly appreciated. Just another reminder, it's the time of the year when we move into pesticide recertification season. Folks, if you don't mind, take your cards out your wallets or out of the console of your truck or wherever you keep those things. Even if you remember or you think you remember that you recertified last year, I always tell folks, look every year when we go to talking about recertification season, take those cards out, look at when you need to recertify by, make sure that you get into a recertification session through your local extension office. So don't be negligent on that. Try to get that handled if you can before time runs out, so to speak. A couple of events. We talked about one last time, but I want to just offer a reminder. Jason and I are in the planning stages and of a master cattleman class. Is going to be the Northeast region and Northwest region combined there in Lincoln Parish in Ruston at the extension office. It's going to begin February the 28th. So if you got anybody in the area that's interested, send them our way and we give them more information. I think it's going to be a good class. Got several folks sign up. Seating is limited though. So if you're interested, try to get your name on the books with us. Get in contact with one of us. We'll get you all the information. Would like to announce that we've set the date on our AI class that we hold annually at the Hill Farm Research Station. This year it's going to be April the 12th through the 14th at the Hill Farm Research Station. We'll be getting the registration forms out and everything like that. As with the Master Cattleman class, we are limited as far as attendance on that. We don't like to take too many folks so that we get a chance to teach one-on-one, so to speak. So if you're interested in AI and would like an opportunity to learn it, give us a call and we'll get your name on the books and get you all the information needed to register. As being said, a lot of positivity in the cattle markets. I know Jason's got more to talk about this week than probably Vince and I combined. And I don't want to steal a lot of his thunder. I'm sure he's going to touch on the National Cattle Inventory Report that came out from the USDA. Spoiler alert, it was pretty shocking, which it was expected to be shocking. No, simply put, there's not a lot of cows out there, folks, and kind of bodes well for us on the cow-calf side of things moving forward. Markets were mostly untested in Northwest Louisiana, Eastern Texas, Southwest Arkansas, kind of the Arklatex region. It's hard pressed to find some sale results. You know, a lot of those order buyers that buy cattle at these Arklatex based sale barns are coming out of East Texas, Oklahoma, Central Texas, and they were shut down, folks. This ice storm I alluded to earlier on in the report just had them shut down. And so a lot of these barns, even though there was no ice on the ground, they weren't 100% sure that they could get the buyers there, or if they got the buyers there, if there'd be problem getting the cattle out to where their next destination was. So they shut down. I'm curious to see what transpires this week as far as these local auction markets and everything. One note, and we tend to focus a lot on the calf market simply because that's what we sell a lot of is calves. But boy, I'm hearing some rumors, and I don't like to deal in rumors or stuff, but this cull cow market, folks, I talked to a buyer a couple of days ago that said that if you think you're going to get shocked by the calf market, you are about to really be floored by what's going to happen on this cull cow deal. The example he used, and of course I can't provide the name or anything like that, so you take it with a grain of salt, but he alluded to a western sale barn, kind of not a regional, but kind of a local sale barn. They had 2,000 head of cattle. This was a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was 15 or 20 cull cows out of 2,000 head. The rest were calves and weaned yearlings and so on and so forth. But it 15 or 20, something like that, cull cows. And that's shocking, folks, that few of cull cows. You could attribute it maybe to the fact that we culled so hard for so long on these reports. We talked over and over about getting these unproductive, these old kind of poor performing cull cows out of your herd. I think folks have been listening maybe and have got them gone. So hold on to your socks and your boots on the cull cow market. I've got a feeling. Final thing I'm going to allude to, and I've rambled quite a bit, and I'm trying to talk as fast as I can. My way of speech doesn't lead to fast talking that much, but I want to talk just a little bit. And at the risk of preaching, I'm kind of sounding like a preacher on a series of sermons across these news updates. But I do want to touch just one more time on information and social media information. Social media is a wonderful thing. You can see market reports from across the country, but there can be a little bit of confusion. And I've seen and talked to some producers that have debated a little bit about some of these market reports. So I just wanted to share a couple of instances. There was a post that was shared quite widely out of a sale barn in Montana, and I'll give you some information on that. 25 head of black steers, average weight was 413 pounds. They dollared up to $3.01 per pound. That's $1,243.12 per head. Now, on this market report, folks, they didn't report it in cents per pound. They reported it in dollars per hundred. Okay. So when you saw that post, a lot of folks thought that those 413-pound black steers were bringing $301 per head. That's not right. So you got to understand that some of these sale barns sell by the hundredweight. Of course, this is a group lot where here in Louisiana, we sell mostly singles, individuals, and so on and so forth, mostly by the head, by the pound per head. Just another figure is 114 head of black heifers, same weight, 413 pounds, brought $2.35 a pound, dollared up 9.70 and 55 cents, and that's a whole load of cattle. You do the average, and that's right near 50,000 pounds. Folks, be careful not only on how they're selling the cattle in groups versus individuals, selling by the hundredweight versus by the individual pound, but also be careful comparing these sale barns in the southeast to what you see like out this deal out of Montana, because it's different types of cattle, folks, just plain and simple. All it takes is getting on the internet and looking at Google and looking at some of these cattle. You can tell there's a lot of difference, just a different makeup, different environment, different feed source, different grasses. They can produce something that's I'm going to stop short of saying better cattle than what we have, because we've got some good cattle down in the southeast, but they can produce some highly productive, highly uniform cattle that feed out real good and that kill real good. So just be careful whenever you're looking on the internet and when you see these social media posts about these sales and the sale results. Be careful comparing them to what you see on these sale barns in the southeast. Jason, I think I've said a lot in probably a longer time than what y'all wanted, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Lee. And I'll jump in there real quick on the private pesticide applicator recertifications. I'll get maybe I can get with Dr. Edwards and she can get that link to Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry, that link where they've got all of those meetings across the state posted, and we'll get a link to that in the description of this recording. So y'all remember a couple of weeks ago, I made reference to the snipe bogging up to his butt in northeast Louisiana. He's up to his neck now, guys. It's when I tell you the ground in northeast Louisiana is rotten, it is rotten. And once you get out of these hills on the western side of the Washita River and you drop off into that delta land, and the water's got nowhere to go, all the ditches are full of water, fields are full of water. It's just got nowhere to go until some of this we get a little bit of relief. And it looks like this week, other than Wednesday, it looks like we're going to get some drying weather. So we definitely need it, and we need a lot of this sunshine to get this ryegrass going in the direction that we need it to go. Do have a good bit to talk about. I'm glad you brought that up about the cull cows, because we're going to look at some pretty interesting numbers here towards the end of this report. We'll get started. So the weekly slaughter fell to 641,000 head. That's down 18,000 from the prior week. Although it is a small slaughter, it still remains 6,000 above the same week last year. Packers are still struggling to stabilize these box beef prices. So we've got we're in our fifth consecutive week of declines in our box beef prices. So they're struggling to get those stabilized. And they're looking at margins. I mean, that's what it's all about for the Packers. So they're looking at that and they're trying to get them stabilized. Choice box beef closed the week at $265.82 a hundred. That's down $3.35 from the previous week, with a choice select spread of $13.32, which is down $3.71 from the previous week. Declining supplies of cattle, lower marketing weights, and a transition into warmer weather and improved demand for beef cattle, I believe, is setting the stage for a good, strong springtime rally. And I think Lee and Vince have both alluded to that we're sitting in a spot that we should see some really strong rallies in these markets as we head on into the springtime. The change in so as Lee stated, we did get a January 1 cattle inventory report last week. So a lot of these numbers that I'll touch on right now are coming out of that report. The change in total cattle reported on January 1 from the same date last year confirmed 2.8 million head decline. I'll say that again, 2.8 million head decline from the same date last year. This is the most aggressive single-year decline since 1989. January 2023 numbers were down 3.6% to 38.32 million head in total cows. Beef cows totaled the lowest point since the 1960s. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska lost about 100,000 head or more. Beef heifers held for replacement down 5.8% from last year, which implies that expanding the beef cow herd isn't practical from a drought or profitability standpoint. Heifers held for beef replacement were the lowest since 2011. And we all remember what happened in 2011, as Lee just stated a while ago. One of the worst droughts that most of us have seen in our lifetimes. The 2022 calf crop was listed as 2% below a year ago. 10 states saw losses of greater than 5% on their calf crop. 26 states had losses of more than 2% on the calf crop. Total feeder cattle supplies were confirmed as 2.8% below a year ago, while all cattle on feed was down 3.7%, and cattle grazing on small grains were down 5%. So, as Lee stated, and I'll say it again, we're posed in this cattle market to see some really, really strong prices as we head on into 2023, just because of a supply and demand scenario. So I think, in my mind, one of the two biggest things that will affect prices going forward, one is the economy and inflation, what that continues to do. And number two is what our export markets continue to do. Domestic demand is still strong, but inflation is taking its toll on that. So if we can continue to keep a strong export market, we should continue to see some really good prices. Reported in the National Weekly Direct Slaughter Negotiated Purchasers Report, that had confirmed 64,468 head that were sold through negotiated means. In the Texas Panhandle, live purchases traded $2 higher at $158.100. In Kansas, live purchases traded $2 to $3 higher from $158 to $159. In the Western Corn Belt, they traded $2 to $3 higher from $154 to $160. And in Nebraska, they traded $2 to $3 higher from $155 to $159. Live cattle futures market settlements in the front months ended the week with April up 30 cents at 164.12, and June up 27 cents at 160.27. Y'all do the math on 164.12 on a finished steer. That's some pretty good money on a fat calf. Live cattle futures ended the week mostly steady when compared to the week opened. 5 to 600 pound steers, medium and large ones and twos, sold from 184 to 191. which is steady to down $7 when compared to the previous week. Although we were steady to down $7, y'all, as Lee said a while ago, there wasn't very big runs across the midsection of the country at livestock auction markets. Nasty weather from western Texas all the way up to Missouri. I mean, it was just nasty. So really light runs. So yeah, I consider only down $7 to be a pretty good testament to that we're still in a pretty strong market. 700 to 800 pound feeder steers, medium and large ones and twos, sold between 159 and 172. So they were up $8 to steady when compared to the previous week. Futures market settlements on that same class of cattle in the front months ended the week with March up 17 cents at 186.10. April up 55 cents at 190.62 on those 7 weights. Feeder cattle futures ended the week $2 to $3 higher when compared to the week open. All right, cull cows. So y'all remember these prices I'm going to give you are averages. So as you listen to some, as we get into those higher condition cows and the averages that I'm giving you, remember that there's going to be some that are going to be a good bit higher than what this average is reporting. But all I'm giving you is the averages. So those thin condition cows up 4 cents at 73 cents a pound. Those in moderate condition into the week, 4 cents up, 83 cents a pound. And those in high condition into the week, up 4 cents at 87 cents a pound. Y'all, this time of year, 87 cents. And if you'll go look at those reports, there was some mid 90s to upper 90 cents a pound on some of these cull cows. Y'all, for this time of year, for February, that is some crazy cull cow prices. Normally they don't start really building some pricing or some value into those cull cows until we get closer to summer grilling season. They're trying to build up that grind. We'll start seeing some prices like that, but to see prices like that in February, there's a lot of optimism in that particular segment of the industry right now. Looking at our feedstuffs, soybean meal up $20.50 at $536.50. Soybean hull steady at $200 a ton. Rice bran steady at $200 a ton. Cottonseed meal steady at $392.50 a ton. Whole cottonseed steady at $365 a ton. Corn gluten feed meal, that's the 60% product, is steady at $800 a ton. DDG steady at $300 a ton, and corn up 4 cents a bushel at $7.10 a bushel. So luckily for this past week, our feedstuffs did kind of level out a little bit. But as we continue to get closer into planting season, we could start seeing some pretty drastic movement on some of these commodities as we get into the next planting season and the next crop cycle. So that'll wrap up our markets. So we'll get some information attached to this in terms of the Master Cattleman class coming up in Ruston. The AI class, we'll get some information on that. And I guess I'll put one more plug in here. So I think the last time we mentioned about district livestock shows coming up. So this coming Saturday, February the 11th, we'll kick off the state livestock show. That's where all of our 4-H and FFA kids from the state of Louisiana will gather at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center in Gonzales, Louisiana. So it runs from Saturday to Saturday. So they'll kick off on Saturday the 11th. We'll go all the way to Saturday the 18th. So the first part of the week will be sheep and goats, and then cattle and pigs will start moving in towards the middle of the week, and we'll end up on Saturday the 18th with a big awards program for all of those winners. So again, I encourage you, if you're within driving distance and you can get out and come down there and support those kids, please do so. They've worked hard to get to the point that they're at. And we need to show that we're supporting them and the projects that they have, and as I said before, most importantly, supporting them in the industry that they're that they're participating in. So if you're in the area, if you're within driving distance, take an opportunity to come over and visit with us a little bit. So Vince and I will be there pretty much all week. Lee, I'm not for sure if you're going to make the trip down this year, but look up Vince Ride. We'll be there pretty much all week, and we'll be happy to visit with you. Either one of y'all got anything else y'all want to add? All right. Well, we appreciate it, and we will see y'all again in a couple of weeks. Thank y'all very much.